There's one thing you can do just once that completely changes how someone treats you. 4 things. You name it without emotion. You say what changes. You follow through once. And you let the silence do the rest. Most people never discover this. And because they don't, they spend years being talked over, taken for granted, treated like an option. Here's exactly what it is. The first thing you do, name what happened without emotion. When someone crosses a line, whether they talked down to you, canceled on you last minute, took credit for your work, or just consistently treated you like you weren't a priority, the natural reaction is to get emotional. Don't. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotion gives the other person something to argue with. The moment you raise your voice, their brain shifts from, "What did I do wrong?" to, "Why are they overreacting?" You lose before you even start. Instead, say exactly what happened. Flat. Simple. No charge in it. Not, "You always do this to me." But, "You said you'd be there. You weren't." Not, "You never respect my time." But, "This is the 3rd time this week you've changed plans at the last minute." Facts don't argue back. Feelings do. When you speak in facts, you put the other person in a very uncomfortable position because there's nothing to deflect. They can't call you dramatic. They can't say you're being sensitive. It happened. You named it. Now it's just sitting there between you. And here's what most people miss about this moment. The other person's nervous system is reading you while you speak. If you're calm, they register you as someone who is in control. Not hurt, not desperate for a reaction. In control. And people instinctively treat controlled people with more care. Not because they decide to, but because their brain tells them to. Calm authority triggers a respect response almost automatically. It's biological. You're not just having a conversation, you're sending a signal. The second thing, tell them what changes now. This is the part most people skip. They name what happened, maybe they express how they felt, and then they wait. They wait for the other person to apologize, to change, to suddenly become a different person. That's not how it works. After you name what happened, you tell them, simply, without a long speech, what is different now. I'm not available for that kind of last-minute change anymore. When you speak to me that way, the conversation stops. If this keeps happening, I'm going to have to step back from this. Notice what these sentences have in common. They're not threats. They're not ultimatums designed to control someone. They're just information. You're telling the other person what reality looks like now, what you will and won't be available for. This matters more than most people realize, because what you're actually doing is updating how the other person models you in their head. Before this conversation, their model of you said, they'll put up with this. After this conversation, that model has to change. You've introduced new information, and that new information and the fact that you have a line changes how they approach you going forward. They start asking themselves a question they weren't asking before. How will this person respond if I do that? That question is respect. That's what respect actually is. It's someone accounting for you before they act. And there's something else happening underneath this that's worth understanding. When you tell someone what changes, calmly, without drama, you remove the ambiguity they've been living in. A lot of people treat others poorly, not because they're malicious, but because they've never been shown a clear edge. They keep going until something stops them. You are now that something. You've made the invisible visible. And most people, when they can actually see a line, will stop before crossing it. The third thing, follow through. Once. This is where most people lose everything they just built. They say what changes. They mean it in the moment. And then the other person pushes back, or gets quiet, or looks hurt, and suddenly the boundary disappears. The line gets moved. And now, the other person has learned something far more damaging than if you'd never said anything at all. They've learned that your lines aren't real. You only need to follow through once. Not aggressively. Not dramatically. Just once, do exactly what you said you would do. If you said the conversation stops when they speak to you that way, stop the conversation. calmly, without a speech, just, "I'm going to step away right now. We can talk later." If you said you weren't available for last-minute cancellations, and they cancel last minute again, don't scramble to reschedule. Let it sit. Let there be a consequence that you don't have to explain. When you follow through, something permanent shifts in the dynamic. Because now, the other person has evidence. They've seen it. They know that when you say something, you mean it. And that changes everything. Not just about this situation, but about every interaction that comes after it. They become more careful, more considerate, more present when they're with you. Not because you scared them, because you showed them that you take yourself seriously. And when you take yourself seriously, other people have no choice but to do the same. Here's the part that surprises most people. You usually only have to follow through once, maybe twice. Because after that, the other person has updated their understanding of who you are. They're no longer testing a boundary they think is flexible. They know it's real, and that knowledge quietly governs every interaction going forward. Even when you're not thinking about it, even when the topic never comes up again. The dynamic has been reset. Permanently. The fourth thing, let the silence do the work. Most people are terrified of silence. The moment there's a pause in a conversation, especially a tense one, they rush to fill it. They over-explain. They soften what they just said. They add qualifiers that slowly undo everything they built. Don't do that. After you've named what happened and said what changes, go quiet. Let what you said land. Let the other person sit with it. This is harder than it sounds. Because silence feels uncomfortable. Your brain will tell you to say something, to reassure them, to clarify, to make sure they're not upset. Resist it. That urge to fill the silence is the same urge that has been undermining you for years. It's the part of you that still prioritizes their comfort over your clarity. Silence after a boundary is not awkward. It's pressure. And that pressure isn't yours to relieve. When you stay quiet, something shifts in the room. The other person realizes you're not going to walk it back. You're not going to laugh it off. You said what you said, and you're comfortable enough in yourself to let it stand. That kind of composure is rare, and people feel it immediately. There's a reason the most respected people in any room speak the least. It's not that they have nothing to say. It's that they understand the weight of silence. Every word they do say lands harder because of the quiet around it. You can have that too. Not by saying less for the sake of it, but by trusting that what you've already said is enough. Say the thing, then stop talking. Let the silence be the final word. Why this works so deep? Here's the psychology underneath all of this. Every relationship, friendship, family, romantic, professional, has an invisible map, a set of unspoken rules about what each person will and won't accept. Most of the time, nobody sits down and negotiates this map. It just forms over time, based on what each person does and doesn't respond to. When someone keeps showing up late and you keep forgiving it without a word, the map updates. It says, "This is acceptable here." When someone talks over you and you let it pass, the map says, "That's allowed." You're not consciously deciding this. Neither are they. It just happens. What you're doing when you draw a line calmly and follow through is updating the map. You're not destroying the relationship. You're not punishing anyone. You're just giving the other person accurate information about who you are now. And people can only treat you according to the version of you they have in their head. Give them a more accurate version, and the treatment changes. It almost always does. But here's what makes this even more powerful. When you update the map in one relationship, something else happens. You start carrying yourself differently in all of them. Your posture changes. Your tolerance for certain behavior drops, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Other people feel that shift even when you haven't said a word to them yet. They sense that you've crossed some internal threshold, that you're no longer someone who's quietly absorbing things, and they adjust before you even have to ask them to. What about the people who don't change? This is the question most videos won't answer. Here it is. Some people, when you draw a line, don't adjust. They push harder. They escalate. They act like you're having a boundary as a personal attack on them. They make you feel guilty for it. That reaction is information. It's the most important information you'll get in any relationship. Because what it tells you is, this person has been benefiting from your lack of lines. And now that you have them, the dynamic they preferred no longer exists. That's not a reason to take the line down. That's a reason to trust it more. The right people, the ones worth keeping close, will adjust. They may feel uncomfortable at first. They may even need a moment to process it. But they'll come back with more care, more awareness, and more respect. Because they actually value you. And now, they have a clearer picture of what valuing you looks like. The ones who don't adjust are telling you exactly who they are, not who they were having a bad day as, not who they could be if things were different, who they are. And that's one of the most valuable things a moment like this can show you, because it removes the confusion. You no longer have to wonder whether someone respects you. You've given them the opportunity to show you. Their response is the answer, the one thing most people get wrong. They think this process is about the other person. It's not. When you draw a line and hold it, yes, the other person's behavior changes. But what actually changes first is something inside you. Your posture in the relationship shifts. You stop walking into interactions on edge, wondering if today is the day they'll treat you badly again. You stop rehearsing how you'll react if they do, because you already know. You've already decided. That internal calm is what other people feel when they're around you. That's what makes them more careful. Not the words you said, not the rule you set. It's the energy of someone who knows their own worth and has quietly stopped negotiating it. And here's the final thing worth sitting with. This isn't a technique you use on people. It's a standard you set for yourself. The behavior change in the other person is just a side effect. The real result is that you stop living in relationships where you're constantly managing the consequences of having no line. You stop shrinking. You stop over-explaining. You stop hoping people will eventually treat you better on their own. You give them the information they need. And then you let their response tell you everything. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to perform it. You just have to live it once and let the results speak. Name it without emotion. Say what changes now. Follow through once. Then let the silence do the rest. That's it. That's the whole thing. And the behavior changes, sometimes slowly, sometimes faster than you'd expect. But it always does. If this shifted something for you, send it to one person who needs to hear it. And subscribe. There's more like this coming.